Seems as though both these teams have a decent ways to go now as far as that next zone pull is concerned. But Hype, Cringe, they're not willing to let this one go just yet. They've spent enough time here for them to determine that finishing out the fight now is kind of a necessity at this point, and based on Hype's loadout, seems as though he might be looking for a possible opportunity to see if he can get better heals at this point. That med mist quickly running out. Small ticks from the Storm, obviously not a threat just yet, but still annoying enough for Hype to know I've either got to invest or rotate. And I thought it was going to be an invest moment here for Hype and Cringe. Instead, it's full swing into the rotate idea now.
This is what they're going to be rotating into. Many fights happening on the middle and left side of the map. Demon and Lucia, second place overall on the board, second place in game one. Trying to translate that to stay on the podium for game number 2. We're going to see what they can do from this box that is being pressured from a lot of sides. On the north, people are walking by. What's going on with Reason over at Stilts? They're also making their way into the game. Leyendas, a little bit more success inside this game. Nice shot, good control. Get the loot, max mats. They're looking very healthy this game.
But look at that pincer tactic from Reason and Giannis. One attacks the front side of the box, Reason goes to the back side of the box, and there's really nowhere for that solo to run. So a nice, quick and easy elimination there for Reason and Giannis as they continue to rotate around, but a little bit more threat from a distance here as Reason will have to utilize some builds. Just tarp out a little ways. But he does still have enough to get his shield back to practically full. So not much stress just yet for that duo.
Not just yet. I see the mini signal in the sky, so I want to see what Mini Miner Man has to say about this one.
Mini Miner Man is thinking all the way back to game number 1 off spawn. Trip and Refs, they went down off spawn because they tried a 50-50 at those sort of caravan area. They've decided to split their drop very much like they did in grand finals. And of course, this brings a few more issues for them, but they are surviving off spawn, which is really, really great stuff from this team. We actually see Refscar dropping Trip his assault rifle, and whilst Trippin goes up on top of this base, we see Refscar actually going down, farming some materials to keep their materials afloat. Because remember, they don't get all of that metal at those caravans areas, so they need to try and gather as much of that material as they possibly can. So with 5 games remaining, they've decided to split their drop instead of 50-50ing. So hopefully for them, I'm expecting a big game for this team.
Splitting the drop, splitting the responsibilities as well. The Tripper in there on damage duty. As for Nebs and Hellfire, Nebs, he's got the man pistol, and he's also got his own MK assault rifle if he wants to try and find some extra tags in the process. And it does seem as though that's the primary idea here. Also potentially looking for a setup opportunity for when that Rift Island spawns in.
Yeah, that'll be the best thing to collapse on. I think that's exactly what they're going to be going for. Just slightly away, but so many people have that idea around them. I mean, the points, everything associated, the control you have, just the nice little game plan that exists too. It's huge. They'll go for free tags for people flying in. It'll be Janice and Reason. They'll rock through. They're going to be able to get a lot of the stuff that's available on this island, but at a cost of their HP. Should be fine. Have a lot of shields already. And afterwards, we'll be able to get even more from the capture point.
Just a great job, though, from Giannis and Reason to be the first ones to touch down on the Rift Island. Very common tactic. You'll see these teams looking to box up with brick around that capture point. And a successful endeavor for Reason and Giannis now. They'll be reaping the benefits of that immediate surge onto the Rift Island, but again, can't expect them to necessarily walk away from it for free. Granted, they do have a pretty good height advantage over some other teams, but wouldn't be surprised to see another team look to try and shuffle their way on up to Rift Island, maybe look to take the vault if possible.
Gotta keep accruing as much loot as possible. That's what it's about. Vortex Belusi always kind of in that not even passenger seat, but you know, back left seat where you can't even see the driver and maybe sometimes can check for a blind spot. Not as in control is what I'm trying to say of their destiny, major to major, final to finals, no matter who they're playing with. This time though, some experience in the finals last week paired with what stakes are up for grabs in this one. They're looking overall good in their game plan in game one, early game. I think that was the issue overall in earlier tournaments. They want to just be able to make those late ones stay as a duo, look good. Meanwhile, Rexy, I pumps you going down early, one of the first duos to go down in game one. This time inside a fight, pressured because of surge, not enough damage, and as a result, they will go down. He talked about the split drop for Escard and Tripper, and he talked about how they split this duo apart too inside this fight. 944 damage above. That is a record for what I've seen on the day.
That is a massive amount of damage to be above the threshold here, Shayo. This can be a full shift now for Refs and Trip to just prioritize positioning for whichever way these next couple of zones end up pulling. And as you can see, a decent amount of congestion already building as well on the west side of this zone. Great opportunity, I think, for Refs and Trip, given that they are in a relatively dead side spot for the time being, to just look for a more central position, maybe try and play bouncer to any of these teams that are looking to shuffle in from the congested area.
You want your own space. You want to be able to do what you need to. Bevy's probably winning once again. Not having as many early fights to take, not having that free extra padding on their surge trash, and having everyone kind of just used to what happens now towards Rift Island and used to the drop in every single box earlier on. They're having a little bit more trouble staying so ahead on surge. Somewhat more reasonable zone overall for them to fight with as well. They try to surprise all the way up top, but seeing as Bevies is not going to be able to make that mantle inside the box, so he is allowed and welcome. The door is open. Please bring on it some more. Knock on it again, because we'll take that loot for free. Riz and Rad looking good right now.
I've never seen somebody be so prepared for another person to jump into their box than what Rad looked like in that moment. For Pablo as well, that shield crack sound possibly alerting some of the other teams on this island that he is not exactly in the healthiest position. He might have been just far enough that teams aren't able to hear the fact that his shields were cracked by the storm surge damage, but yet again, another crack here. And now for Pablo, it's gonna have to be a bit of a Hail Mary decision here. He needs to find some damage and find it quick. One good shot, two good shots could be the real difference maker here. We'll get a couple of minis to bide his time, but he is quickly running out, and it does not seem as though he's going to find a saving grace for many of these other teams in the lobby. He's dropping instead. That surge damage threshold getting further and further out of his grasp as a solo here to try and acquire those last couple of ticks of damage. It'll be an immediate drop off the zip line, but not enough time, not enough health. And one more time, Pablo and Bevies dropping relatively early on here in game number 2. Paco as well. Yet another player elimed by that storm surge damage. And it seems as though that damage threshold that we saw from Refs and Trip, it might be a very uncommon thing from the other teams so far today. So Refs and Trip have definitely got to be feeling pretty good about where they're at.
Kaiser want to be there. That's some good damage. Honestly, I don't know what all these guys are doing that we're watching. Paco, Pablo, if I'm them, I'm just walking up to a box and landing a 500 damage pump shot. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? You just gotta do 600, 700 damage to stay above everyone else. Just land the big shot, right? No, it's not that simple at all. You can only wish. And so many people inside these boxes are gonna be low HP for Clement to do just that. For Fire Bro, not looking as icy as last game. Getting a little bit more tropical with this one, and as a result, their rotation, their brain's gonna be tested now. They could keep going, jump into the ravine to the bottom of the left, be out of sight lines towards that right side, but I have no idea who could be waiting.
Some of these teams just trying to be built a little bit different here. And Curb and Firebro, while they don't necessarily have a whole lot to their name, they might be okay for the time being. Not really looking too comfortable as far as that damage threshold is concerned. Barely above 24 last we checked. But they definitely need a refresh of some sort. Refresh, whether it's for materials or for heals in general. Ammo can also go a long way. Trip and refs. Their damage threshold, again, still sitting plenty above where it needs to be. As these two now look to move a little bit deeper into the zone. A decent amount of traffic behind them as well. Trip and refs have got to be aware of some of the congestion that's starting to build behind them. And again, with some of those teams already entering just inside the edge of the zone, have to expect some of them might be looking to get a little bit of a sky base going and play a little bit of keep away from all these other teams trying to push in.
If you're Giannis and Reason right here, Taco, what are you doing to get in?
Full sprint, full send. That's really their only option at this point. They have to basically just ignore everything that's going on behind them. They've got a clear line of sight, and they're just doing everything they can, torping as rapidly as they can, taking shots where they might find an opportunity, but again, they know just how much ground they have to cover, and they know just how crucial it is to actually find themselves inside of the zone as quickly as possible, because if you get caught out on these edges, again, it's just so easy to then be further suppressed by not only the congestion working its way alongside you, but those other teams that are also already in position in zone in front of you.
100%. I'm liking their two-stop shop approach as well, where you really focus on that glacier first while coming in. Want to get as close to it, want to just focus on any people that are up top there, kind of get all the other stress factors out of the way, and then wait a little bit and then move because they have the time. Now, Firebro and Kirk can do the same thing. They're looking to have these trees block off sight lines and get close to that glacier, but they don't have the same amount of time to get in. They don't even have the same amount of HP to be at that point. And, you know, you're talking about some of the tertiary stuff. The primary thing is they have no mats, so having the option to move up that glacier is not going to be a thing either. They have to stay down below. They are going to be able to get in for now, but you look at that next pull, never mind. Is that a collapse shot too? Both of them down. That's crazy. Free pickup for FortNite. Nuts.
Not even a chance to look at the next zone. They didn't even get an opportunity to breathe from entering the last one. But that's just how quickly the rug can get pulled out from underneath you. One moment, you've got the victory around. The very next, you're scraggling your way into the zone, and still, it's not good enough when facing up against the likes of some of these other teams, putting themselves in a slightly better position than the game before. But that's the other thing too, is for a lot of these players, you kind of just have to take every single game as is. You just have to play it out as if the one before you didn't exist. Because the moment that your mental starts to fold, the moment you find yourselves panicking or hesitating in your shot calling decisions, that's where things can really start to break down for you. For Kaizen, wary of the team on his backside, full pressure right now into his box, doesn't even get an opportunity to look for backup from Clement. Instead, Clement, he's gonna have to forfeit any sort of opportunity to look for a counter elimination. He knows 1 versus 2 is not the predicament he wants to be in, so he continues to just try and charge as deep into the zone as possible, but working his way from these low ground layers, it's gotta be so much paranoia, Shayo, when you just see all of these builds existing in front of you already.
Yeah, but not a space that Clement's been a stranger to before. I mean, this man knows how to be inside that clutch driver's seat. It's actually very comforting to watch a lot of boxes in front of you, especially built up with brick, and you don't see anyone editing on you in front of you. You know, these guys are just kind of focused on the next thing in front of them. They're not going to be really focused on you. So more of a saving grace than paranoia overall. Vortex Belusi inside that same spot. You see everyone have that bounce back as well. They're going to be focused on just staying low key, because if you edit, you're going to be in trouble. And luckily enough, we don't see Belusi go down. There is a minute for the zone to move, and it is a bounce back the other way. These guys have max position on it, so this res should come through easily. For everyone else, they've had experience coming up this mountain. Now it's time to go down. The most important thing is just to build behind yourself and build exactly where you're going, like Clement did. Is a solo right now, has a few more mats to roll with. I think it'll last him about 1 or 2 zones. Has to be very careful here. It's all about blocking your front side and then moving, but not moving too fast. Clement focused on everything. Can't watch his feet, slides, and he's down.
Oh man, that is painful, but it just looks as though Clement was so focused, Shayo, on making sure that those teams in front of him were going first. You could see him trying to hang along the edge side of that storm, maybe even looking for an opportunity to dip into the storm for an easier rotate away from everybody else. But man,